Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is Unit 1, Lesson 3 for World Cultures. In this lesson, you're going to learn everything that you have to know about continents and major countries of our world. Please realize before we begin that you should already have the assignment open from Google Classroom, the Google Doc, of course, I'm referencing, and this is going to be Part 1. As the presentation presents itself, please fill in any content on the guided notes section or answer key concept questions accordingly. For the next part of this assignment for the lesson, please make sure you complete the Cetera Online Geography Challenge and screenshot your results and paste them on the Google Doc accordingly in the correct sections. Basically, that part of the lesson is to test your geographical knowledge of places in the world. Let's begin. What is a continent? A continent is a large continuous mass of land. There are a few continents of our world. There's North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica. Please also realize that the world consists of several different oceans too, which we'll get to later. So North America, Europe, and Asia are both in the Northern Hemisphere. You can think of a hemisphere when we talk about geographical terms as being half. When the globe is depicted in this type of projection, we get a clear depiction of what we're talking about here. Africa spreads both in the Northern and Southern Hemispheres, and South America, Australia, and Antarctica belong in the Southern Hemisphere, respectively. So continents, together with the islands associated with them, cover about 148 million square kilometers or 57 million square miles. These big land masses cover about 1/4 of the Earth's surface. The rest of the fraction there, of course, that I'm connotating is water. And we'll talk more about the world's oceans later on. So continents are comprised of countries with their own population, except for Antarctica in the South Pole. Antarctica, it should be noted, has no permanent, stable, sustainable population at this point in time. Central America is not a continent. It connects the continents of North and South America. Yes, this is true, but it is not considered its own continent. It includes the islands on the Caribbean region and, of course, Central America mainland, respectively. Oceania, however, is introduced in this class as a region. It connects the continents of Asia and Australia. It includes the states and countries of Micronesia, Melanesia, Polynesia, and so on and so forth. Some of those other smaller islands you might have talked about before when it comes to World War II and the Pacific Theater. Let's get to our first continent, which is Asia. Asia is the world's largest continent. It covers about 1/3 of the Earth's land surface. And when we reference Asia, you might be familiar with some of these geographic features. From the Caucasus Mountains and the highlands of Turkey, and the southwestern borders. In the Arctic region, of course, we have the northern borders of Asia. In the southern borders, we're talking about the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. These types of features, of course, best describe the geographic location of Asia. Some fun facts about Asia is that it's the most populous landmass on Earth. It's home to about 60% of the Earth's population. When many people look at this map, some countries stand out to them, obviously Russia and China and India for their size and geography, but also their size and their human geography too is quite notable. You will find Mount Everest in the continent of Asia, the highest point on Earth. Mount Everest soars about 8,848 meters in the Himalayan range. It is considered to be one of the greatest marvels of our world. The Red Sea is the lowest point on Earth, about 400 meters below sea level. Additionally, please realize that there are major capital cities of Asia that you might have heard of before, like Beijing, New Delhi, Bangkok, Tokyo, Seoul, Jakarta, Riyadh, Kuala Lumpur, Abu Dhabi, and Accra. Some of the other major countries here, of course, boast booming populations and promising industries, thus making Asia an important continent of study. Our next continent is Europe. As depicted here, Europe is located next to Asia. Europe covers about 7% of the Earth's surface, less than 1/4 of the size of Asia, but it's slightly larger than the United States. Europe has a rich agricultural and industrial history with resources that have helped it, historically speaking. Many people are familiar with big countries in Europe like Germany, France, and Spain, and of course Britain. But the cutoff of Europe, where Europe meets Asia, is often heavily disputed. Bounded by the Arctic Ocean on the north and the Atlantic Ocean on the west, the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea in the south, and the Ural Mountains on the east, Europe has distinct characteristics, both geographically and culturally speaking, that unite them as a collective whole. In Europe, almost all countries in Europe have access to the seas, except for a few, like Switzerland, Luxembourg, Austria, Hungary, and Romania. Europe is also home to the Vatican City, which is the smallest country in this continent. Yes, technically the Vatican City counts as its own country, and we'll explain why later. Although it's the second smallest continent by surface, it is the third most populous continent after Asia and Africa. When you think about European cities, most people connotate images of people living together in close quarters, and I guess in many ways that perception can be true. Let's look at major cities of the world that are found in Europe. London, Paris, Berlin, Rome, Madrid, Moscow, and more. Before we move on, it should be noted that Russia, in terms of its culture geography, for this class is often deemed to be part of Europe and the European experience. However, most of Russia, by its geographical, so its location, those aspects are considered to be part of Asia. I think it's important to make the distinction so that all students can understand the reference points that are made throughout the class. Next is North America. As depicted here, most of you should be familiar with North America as a continent from previous classes when studying our history. North America is the third largest continent in the world. It extends from the Aleutian Islands in the northwest to the borders of Panama and Colombia in the south. Contrary to popular belief, North America is not just the United States. It also consists of Canada, Mexico, and Greenland, too. The physical features of the continent are as follows. There's frozen wilderness in the north, the widespread forest areas in the mid-ranges, temperate farmlands that make it great for agrarian culture, and grassy plains. Greenland is known to be the world's largest island. It lies at the northeast of the continent, as depicted here. Many people often forget that Greenland is part of North America, and I think often our map projections don't depict it as being such an integral part of the North American geographical construct. North America also consists of, like I said before, Canada, the United States, Central America as a region, the island of Greenland, islands and countries and territories in the Caribbean region, as well as the islands of the west of the North Atlantic Ocean. The North American continent has numerous lakes, numerous rivers, and numerous canyons. As depicted here, you can see that the geography of North America is quite unique and diverse. And when you think about it, it makes sense. If you just visualize for a second the United States and our geography that we have in just our country, you can pretty much see this magnified times 10 when you look at a grander scale of the whole continent. North American countries are unique and diverse as well. By just looking at their flags and, of course, imagining the cultures and how they differ from Jamaica all the way up to Canada, clearly there's much diversity here that we're referencing as well. Our next continent is going to be South America. As depicted here, South America is a unique continent in and of itself for many different reasons. So South America is the fourth largest continent in the world. It extends from the Caribbean Sea down to Antarctica. Now, just so you know, the continent is largely covered by tropical rainforests and is the habitat of thousands of plants and animal species. You might be familiar with some of these places and geographical features, from the Andes Mountains, or Machu Picchu ruins, the longest mountain range on Earth, which runs about 7,232 kilometers along the western coast of the continent, and also the Amazon River, the largest river basin in the entire world. Lake Titicaca, the highest known lake in the world in Peru, and the Atacama Desert, which is one of the driest places in the entire world. As you can see here, South America is comprised of a few countries, all unique and diverse from one another. Please proceed to the next part of the presentation to talk about the remaining parts of the continents and the remaining features of the world.